Thank you for joining us this evening for the March 22nd, 2022 Monte Sereno City Council special meeting. Before this meeting is called to order, I would like to point out a few house rules to assist council members, staff, and members of the public to successfully participate in this meeting. Council members, your microphone is live, so please keep your microphones on mute until you wish to speak. For tonight's meeting, we are using Zoom to host the City Council special meeting. At the bottom of the Zoom client, there are two icons, chat and raise hand. Please use chat only to report technical issues such as being unable to hear a council member speaking. Please use raise hand to be recognized by the mayor and enabled to speak to the council. To comment under oral communication or on any agenda item, you're allowed 3 minutes to speak per agenda item. Emails limited to 350 words can also be submitted to the city clerk and it will be read into the record. This word limit is set to adhere to the typical 3-minute time allowance. Only attendees using the Zoom application can use the raise hand option to comment. Participants calling in from the telephone will only be able to listen and cannot provide feedback or public comment. Lastly, because we are all not in the same room, all votes at this meeting will be taken by roll call.
Excellent, thank you. Call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lawler. And Councilmember Lethal.
Present.
Councilmember Turner.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mekachuk.
Present.
And Mayor Elahi.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Are there any oral communications today? Hearing none, I guess we'll go to written communication. Has anybody communicated?
Mayor, there is a hand raised by Mr. Tony Jeans.
Yeah, Mr. Jeans, please go ahead.
Yes, might I be able to share my screen, please?
Sure, go ahead.
Have to allow it.
Yes, yes. I'm asking our clerk to do so.
I'm not sure what you can see, but it doesn't look as though I'm able to share it properly.
Yeah, we can see some simple SB9 solutions for Monte Sereno.
Oh, you can. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And your 3 minutes will start from now since you just.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Mayor, council members, there are 4 residents I would like to help with SB9, but the ordinance that you enacted won't enable me to do so, so I'd like to tell you a little bit about them. One has a disused riding arena on half an acre of their property where they would love to build a smaller home for themselves and sell their 4,000-foot existing home on the remaining 3/4 acre. This would enable them to stay in the community. A second has an aging orchard over 1/3 of an acre of their land. They want to remodel and add on to their existing home. They'd hope to get plans approved for a 3,000-foot house on a new lot and sell it with plans to pay for the remodel. A third has lived in their property for 26 years and have been meaning to rebuild the home for the last 25 of them. SB9 is an opportunity for them to do so. They would design a 4,000-foot home for themselves and a 3,000-foot home on the second lot, which they would sell with permits. The fourth is really interested and has the right property, but still needs to talk to his wife. And he's really angry about the 800-square-foot rule. So I found it really interesting to note that because the residents will be living in their houses for at least 3 years, they want to design a nice house on the second lot. This is in part because their new neighbors will be living there, in part because they'll be looking at the house when they come home. I want to tell you a little bit about what Saratoga and Los Gatos are doing. Saratoga allows residential units cumulatively to be built up to the floor area ratio for the new lot size, just as SB9 intended. The FAR can be split across 2 homes. They've solved the SB9 objective standards by requiring SB9 ministerial projects to be single-story only. You can potentially ask for discretionary approval for a 2-story design to help on slope lots. In Los Gatos, they allow a residence to be built up to the FAR for each of the lots. they allow an ADU FAR to apply for the second unit. But with Los Gatos, they are requiring the second unit, the small ADU size unit, to be built as a condition of the urban lot split. This helped the town to meet its housing element goals. Los Gatos' objective design criteria is really bad for two-story ministerial projects and will create ugly designs. But as an alternative, you can go to the equivalent of the Site and Architecture Committee and ask for discretionary approval. This takes more time and money, but helps get nicer two-story homes. So the slide that you see, I put up some suggestions for Monte Sereno. Permit SB9 houses to follow the standard zoning rules based on the lot size. Allow an ADU-sized secondary unit if requested. Require all ministerial approval projects to be single-story. Permit a site and architecture hearing with full neighbor input on any SB9 lot. Keep objective design standards for ministerial projects only, as they're all going to be pretty much single story, and you don't therefore need many standards. So I felt that if you followed these guidelines, there's no need to change any of your zoning standards. Planning and engineering work will be straightforward, and people buying properties in Monte Sereno wouldn't have to fear they might be buying a defective parcel that cannot have a real home on it. So I was hoping that this would be one of your goals for the year. I don't know if it is. I'll listen in to see, but I sure as heck hope so, because there are some very upset people who have ideal lots for this.
Thank you, Mr. James. I believe your 3 minutes are up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we really appreciate your contacting us. And I know you send us letters also, so we acknowledge receiving those. So
Okay.
let's
you.
see what we can do. Thank you. Are there any other comments or any other oral communications from any of the citizens? Okay, it doesn't look like it. So are there any written communications?
None.
All right, so we can go to our new business. And the first one is to adopt the teleconferencing extension guidelines or recommendations. There is a staff report.
Mayor, this is the city clerk. This is just the AB 361 resolution to continue teleconferencing our meetings for 30 days. The 30-day, the council last reaffirmed the findings on March 1st. Our next meeting will be April 5th. So in order for us to continue holding teleconference meetings, we will need to reaffirm the findings tonight, and we'll be able to for any questions.
Any questions for staff? Any questions from the public? If not, can I get a motion to approve the resolution, adopt the resolution? Council Mayor Pro Tem Makachek, motion by Makachek and second by
Turner.
Second by Councilmember Turner. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Newfold,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawler,
Yes.
Councilmember Turner,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Makachek,
Aye.
and Mayor Lahey.
Aye.
And that motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. And then we get to our main matter today, the strategy session as it's called. It's the annual council goal setting session for fiscal year 2022 to 23. And if you can have a staff report to get start on this.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. City Manager Steve Leonardis. I just wanted to introduce the item and then introduce Mr. Spano, who has joined us now, I think, since 2017, before my tenure here in Monte Sereno, for our annual goal-setting session. And we begin this evening by saying that it's coming actually on time this year. The last 2 years, because of the pandemic, we started late in the budget cycle. Normally, we like to have our strategic goals figured out this time of year and selected this time of year so we can start factoring those into what ultimately becomes the pre-budget hearing in May, and then adoption for final adoption this year, June 21st, on our annual budget. So that concludes my introduction. I would like to turn it over to Mr. Sean Spano, who will be our facilitator again this evening, and we will be checking back in with you later.
Thank you, Mr. Spanos. It's good to see you joining us again. It was a pleasure having you here last year, so we look forward to your leadership in this area.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, City Manager Leonardis, Sean Spano, and as your city manager said, I have been fortunate to be able to work with the Monte Sereno City Council since 2017, helping with your annual goal-setting session. So we will proceed tonight similar to the format that we used last year. And Michelle, if you could advance to the next screen, please. Getting started, we have our call to order and public comment. We just heard from your city manager, and then I will take a moment here to preview the agenda and format. Next slide, please. So we have three purposes for tonight's session. One is to identify key accomplishments from the last year. And in just a moment, I'll ask council, what do you think, from your estimation, the top one or two accomplishments in the city over the last year? We will do a check-in on your city council role, mission, vision, and values, which we've done regularly over the last several years. And when we set up that item, I'll note that you'd have made changes to the role, mission, vision, and values, including a change last year. And your city manager has suggested some additional changes this year, some grammatical and some given the direction that council provided last year. And so we'll work through that and hopefully validate the role, mission, vision, and values. And then we'll move into the strategic goals. So we'll do a review of your 2021-2022 strategic goals and objectives. And when I say objectives, those are the items underneath the goals, the subcategories underneath the goals. So we'll do a check-in on the goals and objectives from last year, and Steve has put together, you have that in your packet, a handout of the goals and objectives indicating the status of where they are. Some are in progress, some have been completed. And so we'll want to do a review of those and then consider new objectives for this coming year and into next year. And that'll be the bulk of our meeting, working around those strategic goals and objectives. So before I move forward, any questions, comments, concerns here from council about our format tonight, our goals and purposes? And if you'll recall from last year, it looks similar to last year. My professional judgment was we had a very successful session last year, and we'll continue with the same format this year. And we can be very informal here today. If you want to just take yourself off mute when you want to talk, or do the raise hand function. And as we move through the agenda, I'll encourage you to do one or the other. And then if we need to keep a speakers list, obviously I'll keep a speakers list. Okay, hearing no questions or comments to this point, let's go on to the next slide and hear from council on your estimation of the top one or two accomplishments from the past year. And I know there's a lot to draw on here. A lot of good work has been done here in Monte Sereno. So in your estimation, what are those top one or two accomplishments? Who'd like to get us started?
And Mayor, I'm not sure when Mr. Spano would like to facilitate public comment on this agenda item, but if there's not a dedicated time, maybe it makes sense to do it early in this agenda item.
Mr. Spano, do you have any suggestions? I would think once you're somewhere in your presentation where the public has some idea of what's going on, would be a good time to invite public comment. Do you feel we should do it that way, or do you have some other suggestion?
I think that's a great way to proceed, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so we can probably get the council members give their accomplishments, and then maybe you can identify. You can let us know when it would be a good time to get the comments.
Very good.
Thank you.
You want to get us started, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think Monte Sereno is a city which really strives to provide the best services for its citizens. And sometimes there's a struggle and sometimes there's a misunderstanding. But I think we've done well overall. And I don't want to take some of the thunder away from other council members who really worked on those things, like the streets project has been great. We've improved our, at least a couple of our streets to a much better condition than they were, and overall getting the Monte Sereno streets to a really good level. I think it's 70 or 72 plus, and 75 is supposed to be ideal. We've looked at SB 9 now, and that's kind of an ongoing process. We've passed an ordinance in time to make sure Monte Sereno could preserve its character, and also to provide some opportunity for people who may want to build low-income housing on the size of the houses that we designated would be permissible. There seems to be some concern that some people may not be able to get the houses that would be ideal for them, and maybe we should continue taking a better look at it now that we have more time to see if there's any changes we need to make to that particular ordinances. And I'll just leave it at 2, since I said 1 or 2. I don't want to pick up others that others may want to discuss.
Very good. And we can validate some of what the mayor said and any additional accomplishments as well. Mayor Pro Tem Mekachuk, would you like to go?
Sure. When I look at what we've been able to accomplish, we're a small town and we're pretty simple relative to others. In particular, our 3 neighbors being Campbell, Saratoga, and Los Gatos, because we have no commercial. I think that we're now, obviously our permitting is one of the best in the South Bay in terms of applying for a permit, getting your inspections and getting it done. And I think that's a very positive thing. That's operational, not necessarily strategic. I think that as a council, we're really coming together, able to work with each other. We all know our different points. And I think that's all working well. I guess I'm really looking forward to if 2021 was kind of stabilization, and now we're on a stable footing, we can move forward. I think we've got a great team in place at City Hall. So those, I think, are some of our accomplishments.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you.
One final thing. I believe strongly that the value of Monte Sereno has to do with our quality of life, and that is a subset area includes excellent schools, and that adds value to our community. I think public safety adds value to our community, and I think being adjacent, the Santa Cruz Mountains, being able to get into open space quickly and easily adds to our value. And I think Los Gatos Monte Sereno Police Department is doing very well. And I think it's great that we've got a new chief of police. And so I think public safety has been a big accomplishment this year as well.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you for adding those items on. Councilmember Turner.
Yes. So what I wanted to highlight for that we did last year was truly understanding our objective design standards, as well as SB 9, SB 10, and also our resolution to maintain local control. I think those are really important as we go forward. We need to let our state officials know that we are concerned about our residents, the welfare of our residents, and that we want them to have the home and the environment that they truly deserve. I also wanted to talk about maintaining our reserves, right? We had our reserves that we had 2 years ago for 2 years, and we're down to 1 year. And I'm truly happy that we still have that 1 year reserve. And I hope to maintain that. The past councils have been very aggressive in making sure that we don't spend down our reserves. So I would like to continue that. Thank
Very
you.
good. Thank you. And we'll move on to Councilmember Lawler.
Thank you, Sean. Yes, well, I would agree with all my fellow council members on everything that they've said so far. And I in particular feel that our work, the work that we've done on the objective design standards has really stood out for us this year. That was a arduous and long process, and we really engaged the community, and I'm proud of that. I also am very proud of our infrastructure. We continue to deliver on our infrastructure promise in bringing our streets up to a very good pavement index. And I also would say, as a third, the continued fiscal conservatism, I am very proud of as well. Thank you.
Excellent, very good. And we're on to Councilmember Leuthold.
Thank you. I want to echo a lot of what has been said. I think as part of our mission statement and really why most, if not all of us were elected, was to preserve the character of Monte Sereno, which leads into the objective standards and managing SB 9. Really proud of everyone's accomplishments, staff's hard work and site and architecture and the council. Putting that together to maintain the character of Monte Sereno as close to the way it is that it can be, while being responsive to the state and watching what develops in terms of law and legislation on that, and also listening to our citizens so that we can be responsive to the majority of the citizens and individuals who have specific needs and desires and balance those out, as is our job. A couple of other things I do want to echo: financially conservative budget planning, maintaining those reserves, as Councilmember Turner and Councilmember Lawler have pointed out. It's been well managed by council and staff this year. I'd also like to see those reserves growing over time. I think we've pushed them to improve the infrastructure and really carried that forward. But the pavement index is coming up. We've got a lot of investment in that. Staff's done great work on that, as have the rest of the stakeholders in putting in input and getting projects completed. So very good accomplishment and something to continue. And then the general managing of the city, bringing on C-Click Fix, the permitting systems for the improvements that are going on there, bringing back the picnic, I think is a big 2021 accomplishment, and really reaching out and providing a city that meets the needs of our citizens, and keeping it small and conservative and rural while we do that. So those are the accomplishments, and also a lot of my goals for the coming year.
Excellent, very good. Well, that's just a very wonderful list and a rich list of accomplishments, and with quite a bit of overlap there, which says that there were some key successes that you were all able to achieve last year. So congratulations on that. It sets a nice tone for as we move forward, and we will now into the council role. If we could move to the next slide, please.
Can I go ahead and ask for public comment at this time?
Oh yeah, let's do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Please.
Yeah. Are there any members of the public who wish to address council on this subject at this time? I don't believe I see any hands, so we can bring it back to council. Mr. Spano, please continue.
Very good. So as part of your packet, you have the Monte Sereno role, mission, vision, and values. And in your packet, you have in highlighted, yellow highlighted, the suggested revisions. On the screen here on the slides, same exact text, but it's blue text and not yellow highlighted. So this is the overview. This is the couple sentences as the lead in to the role, mission, vision, and values. And you can see, and this will be a very consistent suggested edit, Each place that it says city council, the suggestion here from your city manager is to put Monte Sereno in front. So you can see the Monte Sereno City Council Ad Hoc Committee, Monte Sereno City Council updated, and then the annual goal setting sessions. So those are the suggested edits to this very brief overview paragraph. And in the brackets down below, as I indicated, the suggested revisions are highlighted in blue as we move forward.
Oh, there we are. Yes, thank you.
Good, excellent. And everybody tracking okay with what's on the screen and what's on the slides and what's in the packet? And they'll be consistent with one another, just different colors.
Looks good.
Excellent. With that said, then let's move over to roll. And next slide, please. So it's a fairly lengthy roll, so it's on 3 different slides here. And again, you'll see the addition of naming the city, Monte Sereno City Council, City of Monte Sereno. And then that last 2 sentences are new. And this was a suggestion from council last year to add this into the roll, having to do with the council manager form of government. So let me read that and then open that up for any comments or suggested edits. The Monte Sereno City Council is the governing body of the city of Monte Sereno, vested with policy, fiduciary, legislative, and quasi-judicial authority. New text. The City Council of Monte Sereno operates under a council manager form of government. 5 council members are elected at large by Monte Sereno voters. Those council members direct policy, which is implemented by the city manager of Monte Sereno. So a clarifying question there about the council manager form of government and stipulating roles of the council as well as the city manager. Questions, comments, suggested edits?
Yes. I think those are good edits between direct policy, comma, which is implemented by. And it could be policy, could be plural, direct policies which are implemented. But I think you need a comma between policy and which.
Okay, very good. Policy, yeah. Excellent, very good.
And I'm not sure if people want to, if my council members want to have policy singular or plural.
Thoughts about that, Councilmember Turner?
Oh, I wasn't gonna comment on that. I had a different comment, so let's.
Okay, Councilmember Lawler.
Thank you. I would say that those council members direct policy singular, it is fine. I think that grammatically that implies, the purpose of the council.
Good. So we can suggestion to stay with the singular.
I think that's fine.
Let's move. If you have additional comment.
I do have additional comment.
Please.
Yes, I would like to add those council members direct policy, which is implemented by the city manager and city staff of Monte Sereno. I would like to add city staff in there as well.
Yes. City staff. Very good.
My only comment on that is that the staff all report to the city manager. The staff don't report to council.
And my comment here is that it's implemented by the city manager and city staff. It doesn't have anything to do with the reporting structure.
Okay, Steve, have a response to that?
Thank you for the changes, and I think that the changes that were mentioned are fine either way. Essentially, the definition of the council manager form of government, council members enact policy, city manager implements policy. Of course, it is with the assistance of the city staff, so that change can be made or it can be left alone. I think either way, we meet the gist of the council manager form of government.
Excellent, very good. Go ahead, Councilmember Lawler.
Well, I always err on the side of being more clear and concise. So adding additional language that isn't quite necessary, we shouldn't be adding.
Okay, very good. Yes, and Mayor Pro Tem McChuck.
No, I'm sorry, I'm good.
Okay, I'm sorry, Councilmember Luthold.
I actually like Councilmember Turner's suggestion. I think the implementation, as City Manager points out, is different, and I like the inclusive language, that it's City Manager and City staff, give the credit all around. And I am comfortable with Ms. Lawler's comment about policy, which is in the singular, as it's a policy as a large subject matter heading there. So I'm on the singular and inclusive of city staff on my thinking.
Very good. So if it's okay with council, we will move forward with the comma after policy, and which is implemented by the city manager and city staff of Monte Sereno, and we will leave policy in the singular form. Very good. Let's move on to the next. We'll continue on with the roll. And again, this is all part of a large paragraph. So the Monte Sereno City Council serves all and emphasizing all with the underline of Monte Sereno, establishing policy and making decisions designed to benefit the community. As part of its leadership role, the Monte Sereno City Council advocates, regulates, forms partnerships, provides directions, and monitors achievements. So the only change there is emphasizing, adding the Monte Sereno, name of the city, and emphasizing the all of Monte Sereno. Let's move forward onto Rule 3. And this concludes the description of the council role. You'll see that members of the Monte Sereno City Council lead in their roles and responsibilities through relationships they have with each other, the public, and city staff, and by following all applicable regulations, ordinances, and laws. Monte Sereno City Council members adhere to and model the Monte Sereno Council mission, vision, and values. So that is adding in mission, vision is a new addition, as well as the word lead in there. Nothing major changes here. So if council's okay, we can move on to the next item, which is the council mission, and there are no changes here. It's a great mission statement, so I'm just going to go ahead and read it. The mission of the city of Monte Sereno is to provide high-quality services to residents in an efficient, transparent, and fiscally responsible manner that preserves and enhances the unique residential character of Monte Sereno, protects natural resources, and minimizes resident impacts to the environment, and protects and enhances the health, safety, mobility, and welfare of residents. And that has been edited and added on over the years. And I must say, I work with other city councils and other cities, other agencies, and it's a really wonderful mission statement. And I do know that that statement of enhancing the unique residential character of Monte Sereno, as we heard earlier in the accomplishments, is very important to the city. Let's move on to the vision.
Oh, hold on for a sec.
Please back up, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
I think you need to go forward a slide to council mission.
The mission is up.
That's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing council role. There, oh, one more.
How's that?
There we are.
Okay.
Do we have an extra and in there? Is it Monte Sereno protects natural resources, comma, minimizes residential impacts to the environment, comma, and protects and enhances the health, safety, mobility, and welfare of residents? Do you have an extra and in there?
Yes. That's my read. Let's take that out. You have a very good eye. You might have been an editor in a former life. That's very good. Excellent. So we'll take that and out. not necessary. And to Councilmember Lawler's point, if we can eliminate words without losing the meaning, all for the better. Councilmember Lawler.
Well, if we're going to be the grammar police, then I suggest that we could also remove the comma between mobility and welfare.
And welfare, let's do it.
Thank you.
Yeah, very good.
Then you could take the comma out in the third row as well, between transparent and, to be consistent.
Okay, so we do have what is known, we are getting into some deep grammar here. We do have what's known as the Oxford comma, right? And so that comes after when there are three, we include the comma. And so if you don't mind, I'll go back and look over that and see how that reads with being consistent by including the Oxford comma, because it's included in all the other text on the mission, vision, and values. And we'll
Okay,
just want to
I'm
make
good.
sure.
Yeah, well, in that case, there are two schools of thought, so you might as well just make it easy.
Absolutely.
Make it consistent, one
Exactly.
way or another.
Exactly. Okay, very good. Thank you for that. And we'll move on to vision. Monte Sereno City Council will continue to strengthen community and promote a strong sense of unity. Monte Sereno City Council strives to maintain the unique character and beauty of Monte Sereno and aspires to lead regionally as a desirable place to reside. So that aspires to lead regionally as a desirable place to reside was a suggestion from council last year to include in the vision. Questions, comments, Councilmember Turner?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
Turner, you may want to lower your hand.
I'm sorry?
You may want to lower your hand.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Oh,
Okay. Does that look okay to council? Great. We can move on to values. So you have several values, no change in integrity and professionalism outside of adding Monte Sereno. We move on to transparency and openness, and then there is the addition at the new sentence at the end. We listen to all ideas and viewpoints. We establish clear direction, priorities, and clearly communicate intentions and expectations. The Monte Sereno City Council decision-making process is transparent, open, and available to all participants equally and without exception. Comments, reactions, suggestions, edits to the transparency and openness edition? Great. Yes, Councilmember Luthold.
Yeah, I guess the underlining on all here to me suggests that there's a problem that's being addressed and that we really, really, really have to underline that. And I don't think that's the case. So I think in the prior instance where the all was underlined, it's made sense and wasn't grating. Here, to me, it's grating to underline it.
Very good.
I concur with that.
Good. Other thoughts? Hearing that, let's take that out. Let's just use all without the underline. Very good. We can move on to the next slide, additional values. Performance accountability, no change outside of naming the city, and the same thing with effective and efficient services. Give you a second to read through those. Individual worker, excellent. Okay, and we can move forward, and we have one more slide with the values. Fiscal responsibility, no change, and no change in quality of life for all residents outside of including Monte Sereno. I will note that that very last sentence under quality of life for all residents was the addition of we promote inclusiveness and non-discrimination, which was the suggestion from last year. Actually the year before, and it was included last year in the values. So that's relatively new. Okay, very good. We can move forward here. Thank you for the check-in and the grammatical edits, as well as the other edits, and we can move on to our next main agenda item, which are strategic goals and objectives. I have a couple slides that will set up our discussion here. And one is a reminder for you all on the iceberg model of city work, quite popular. The idea is that roughly speaking, about 80% of the work of the city falls below the water line. And these are just approximate percentages. This is the routine work of the city that happens every day in order to deliver services, in order to serve your residents. And it really is staff's responsibility to deliver those services and continue and maintain and excel at doing the routine work of the city. Now, above the water line, roughly speaking, about 20% of the city resources and time are spent on council goals and priorities. These are vision for the city's future. And what the iceberg model tells us is that for a designated period of time, in this case for 2022 and 2023, you have indicated that these goals have special priority because they fall above the water line. They will require a budget, resources, as well as staff time. And so there's a reason for selecting these strategic goals and priorities because they're meaningful, they're relevant, and they're important to the community at this period of time. So clearly, council and what we're doing here and what you do each year in your annual goal setting session is to establish what those council goals and priorities are. And so that's a very simple model that says what we're doing tonight is developing the larger strategic goals for the city. And while you're doing that, the routine work of the city will continue on. Now, sometimes you have a strategic goal that is on the list of priorities for a year, for 2 years, and you might accomplish the goal and the goal might need to go away. Oftentimes you accomplish the goal and the goal then moves below the water line. It becomes part of the routine work of the city because it was initiated, developed, implemented, tracked, had success, and now we can move it below the water line. So we will move forward tonight and focus our attention here on the vision for the city's future, your strategic goals and your strategic objectives, what your priorities are for the coming year. On the next slide gives a little bit of background about strategic planning elements. What goes into a strategic plan? We've just worked through mission, vision, and values. It's a great way to start a strategic plan, high level. You'll see the arrow down below as you move from left to right, from broad to Pacific. Then you move into your strategic goals, and the strategic goals should be consistent, of course, with the mission, vision, and values. Underneath the strategic goals are those subcategories, those objectives. They start naming specific tasks, actions that need to be taken in order to accomplish the larger goal. Underneath those objectives are key performance indicators, KPIs. These look like if we were to be successful in accomplishing that objective, what does that look like? What are the key performance indicators that would indicate that we have been successful? And that translates easily into staff work plans. And obviously, as you work with staff work plans and key performance indicators, you're being very, very specific now. And there's kind of a handoff that takes place. Council's responsible, as you just did, checking in on your mission, vision, and values, validating those, making changes, updating those. You're dealing with your strategic goals tonight as well as your strategic objectives. And then there's a handoff to staff as start developing the performance indicators. And then, of course, staff then has the work plans. And as your council manager form of government sentence indicates, is then responsible for implementation, satisfying, accomplishing what's in their work plans. So we are on the left-hand side of the strategic planning elements tonight. mission, vision, values, strategic goals and objectives, and then your city manager and staff will return after tonight to validate what those goals and objectives are, and then we'll start indicating what those performance indicators are underneath the objectives. The next slide is another background slide, and the actual process itself to developing the strategic plan, strategic management process. First, you determine what is your position. What is the environment that we're in? So you all have great insight. You have constituents, you have good relationships with your community, you talk, you listen, and your insights are valuable in terms of determining the position. You get community input. We had public comment tonight. You have people talking to you, coming to council meetings, providing their input. Councils sometimes do a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in the external environment, in the internal environment. Your general plan provides wonderful background information and foregrounding information about what your position is, what the direction of the city is, and then of course your budget reports indicate where your fiscal position is. So you determine your position by collecting information from a variety of different sources. And then you develop the strategy, vision, values, strategic goals and objectives, what you've been doing each year and will continue to do tonight. You then build the plan, you compile information together, develop staff work plans, you align to the budget process. As Steve mentioned earlier, it's good to start this process now as you identify your goals and objectives, and that gives you plenty of time to align to the budget process that you know is starting to take place and will continue over the next several months. And then you drive performance. As the city manager is responsible for, with the assistance, of course, of city staff, implementing the plan, monitoring progress, adapting, updating as needed, and of course, informing and keeping council updated about the plan, monitoring the progress, adapting, and any updates that are needed. So that gives a kind of a high level view of strategic planning, what the elements are and what the process is. And so just background information as well as the iceberg model of city government work. And so now we're ready to actually do it. And so we started with the role, value, mission, and vision, and now we're ready to get into the strategic goals as well as the objectives. So if we could just go to the next slide, Michelle, and then I'm going to tee this up, and then we'll go to the document, which is the updated document for your 2021-2022 strategic goals and objectives. You'll see it's the strike-through document. There we go. So you have your 5 goals: quality public service, community character is the second goal, enhanced mobility, community safety, and environmental sustainability. Those are your high-level strategic goals. You have objectives, subcategories underneath those. And so now let's go to a review about how staff did on delivering on those goals, objectives over the last year. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to City Manager Leonardis, who's going to walk you through the update on where staff is right now with the goals and objectives.
Thank you, Mr. Spano, and thank you, Council. So let's begin with number 1 category: provide quality public services. And in that category, we have maintain fiscal prudence. And our first item is study our user and regulatory fees. And currently, staff is working through this process. It is ongoing. We recommend keeping this goal for the coming season, 22-23. Moving on to launch the ad hoc finance committee. We completed that. That is now below the waterline, as well as review and maintain city reserves. Those 2 things will be ongoing. Number 4, consider developing a funding plan to maintain City Hall and future city facilities. This goal we are recommending potentially eliminating. I do not disagree with the goal itself, but I think it needs more fine tuning, or perhaps if this was something council wanted to continue to pursue, it could be assigned to the finance and ad hoc committee. Currently, the source of funding to maintain City Hall is through our general fund. It's not a significant amount of money on an annual basis, at least not in my tenure here. Regarding future city facilities, such as the potential annex building, we don't have a decision on that yet from council, but perhaps if we move forward with that in the future, we could come up with a plan to, as far as operations on that facility. Although I don't think the cost to maintain it and operate it would be significant. It would be basically, there would be a cost recovery plan, so it would not necessarily be a strain on our general plan. But consider removing this as an item, or putting it in a future strategic goals if the city facilities are upgraded, the annex building. Number 5, develop requirements and review annexation of county pockets into the city on an opportunistic basis. That is in process. We have made significant progress since our staff report about a month ago on this. We are in touch with our counterparts over at LAFCO, and they are working with us to put together a supplemental staff report and a plan going forward. Moving on to category B, improve governance and operations, define and continue operational excellence plan and develop operations metrics. This is ongoing. We continue to improve with our C-Click Fix, with our records retention policy, with our evaluations, our communications with residents. So this is something that if council has further input throughout the course of this coming season, we look forward to that input. But we do have many improvements, as were mentioned earlier in the meeting by council members, that have taken place, and we look forward to ongoing improvements. Update city's records management below the waterline now. It's ongoing. Thank you to our clerk, Ms. Estebillo, for doing that, as well as the next item, implementing the C-Click Fix, which I think has really come to be very important for the city as far as our operations and tracking our issues when residents want things repaired. Ms. Estebillo has brought that up to a very useful level of service to our residents, and implemented the QR code, which was requested by council. And we have a new name coming forward that we will be rolling out called Fix It Monte Sereno. We will not further refer to it as C-Click Fix anymore going forward in the near future. Category C, engage community members, continue Citizen of the Year Award program. Council has a chance this evening to review that. It was in our packet, and this is an example of a goal that we could essentially scratch off the list this evening because it is in our report. If council wants to discuss it, we can discuss what's in the report, or you can just say in your comments, yes, we like what you've provided and we like the time frame, and let's go forward with it. Implement annual city survey and resident feedback. I think this would be a good future goal down the road once we continue more of our operational excellence. Right now, I'm not sure how we would implement this. Most of, I think, the feedback we get from residents has been complaints about construction sites and stuff like that, ongoing construction work. And if we rolled out an overall city survey, we may get several complaints about that. And that is something I want to elaborate a little more coming up on how we plan to address that in the future. So I'm recommending putting that one aside or eliminating it this evening until we get more future services in place that I think will help us overcome and get a better feedback from a better survey from our residents. Develop a Veterans Memorial ongoing. That is very much pending on the what happens with the building next door, the annex building. Consider an annual event to engage volunteers and youth commission, shredding, toxic waste drop-off. This was brought to the youth commission again this year, and they've adopted the annual coat drive. And this year it was an annual clothing drive. We received a lot of articles of clothing as well as some canned food goods. So I'm scratching that off the list because we have an ongoing event sponsored by the Youth Commission that I think we will just continue with as our own item going forward. Revise the council goals, roles, vision, and value, published for residents. That is what we have accomplished tonight again. Moving on to Roman numeral number 2, maintain community.
Mr. Leonard, may I suggest we stop at number 1 and see if council wants to discuss that before you move to number 2?
Very
Would that
good.
be okay, Mr. Spano?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And Michelle, if you could just scroll up a little bit, if we could get most of 1 on the screen, that would be great. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay, questions, comments for your city manager?
All right, I made the suggestion, so I better have something to follow up with that. The update city records under improved governance and operations. We've just gone to a new server, so I don't want to have that crossed out at this point until we know that the new people are able to stay on top of that, because that hopefully it'll be taken care of in a week or 2, but I think we should probably keep it there. Then you have this resident issue tracking and corrective action, C-Click Fix. I think that's a good program. I do think we do need to monitor it to see if it's providing the kind of response we need, and also being somewhat fiscally meeting the fiscal requirements, that whatever we are paying for it, we're getting the bang for the buck on it. So I would probably prefer leaving that on there too. The annual survey and resident service feedback. Have we done any surveys in the past, Mr. Leonardis? Do you know?
Thank you for the question, Mayor. To my knowledge, we would have a form filled out, a hard copy form filled out by those who came to our counter and engaged our permitting services in the past, and how that was tallied, and would we call that a formal survey? Just to give you an example, in Los Gatos right now, they are mailing to everyone's home a survey about what they should do for the seniors in their community. And they've mailed it to my home about 3 times. So a citywide survey that is put together by, say, a consultant that has a specific target that will tell the city how they should act in a certain category or how they should spend resources in that category. And I don't think we have this idea or clear direction on this idea. Are we looking for feedback on how people love Monte Sereno senior services, cleanliness of the community, the service that they receive from City Hall? Do they want improved services when it comes to code enforcement or whatever? I think we should have more of a tailored or a targeted result for the community-wide survey. What is the mission with that?
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. Maybe we can have a more formal discussion at as an agenda item as to what we should survey. Obviously, whether the citizens are happy with the staff performance, and staff is doing an excellent job, it'll be good to get that feedback. And then I think we still have this SB9 issue that may keep coming back up again. I know we've done it in one way, but there are still some residents who might want to go a different way. And there may be others. I'm not suggesting these are the 2 that we should do. But I think we do need to try to come up with a survey program, and maybe that should be an agenda item of discussion, and council members can either now give their input now or give it later as to what would be the subject matter of that discussion. Those are the comments I have. Any other council member have any comments? Yeah, Councilmember Lawler, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, talking about the survey, Mr. Leonardis, you did say that we had a mechanism by which people who interacted with the city regarding building were able to fill out a survey, correct? And we don't know how that data was captured. But now that we're on an online permitting system, and now that we have C-Click Fix or Fix It Monte Sereno, is there a way, do we have a way to interface, have like some sort of user interface with that? So anybody who uses either of those things can give their feedback, and thereby we are already conducting our own ongoing survey?
Thank you for the question. And that presents a great opportunity for whoever is using those online systems, regardless of whether it's a C-Click Fix or our online building permitting or planning systems, to fill out a 5-question survey. Maybe that is the way we can start by going forward with that. And I think bringing that back as an agenda item, just so council can determine the content of the questions to ask in those surveys, would be a good idea. How do we want to approach asking to obtain the information that we are looking for? How was your experience with Monte Sereno, right? That would be one general question. an example of a general question we can ask. But maybe something like that. You know, we've all had the opportunity when we frequent an establishment online or whatever, signing up for something, and or you're on the phone call at the bank or whatnot, and they say, if you want to participate in a survey, please press 1 or something at the end of this call. So that's an excellent suggestion on how to implement this in a cost-effective manner that I think would be attainable. But as far as the content, what we're looking for, I think that would be a good future agenda item.
Okay,
Right.
thank you. And one more question
Sure.
about the Veterans Memorial. I'm wondering, you know, given that we don't know when we're going to be able to renovate the annex building, I'm wondering if we can go ahead and actually do something with this, because I know Mr. Franchidakis brought it to our attention several years ago and it still hasn't happened. And I'm wondering if we could maybe do something, you know, maybe actually make that happen this year. And maybe it won't be maybe on the scale of what it would have been if we do the whole annex, but considering that may not happen, I'm thinking maybe we should try to focus on that as well.
Thank you for your comments on that. Originally, the idea was to incorporate it into the landscaping when the landscaping was redone, when the building was redone. And at our next council meeting, we will be bringing back the annex building for council to decide if they want to move forward with the building. So perhaps follow up to that meeting if council does not move forward with the project, then we could look at, well, maybe just addressing the Veterans Memorial need in lieu of the total project. But if we put the Veterans Memorial in prior to council completing that project, it might have to be removed and replaced. So.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks.
Yeah, Councilmember Turner.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I would like to make a comment about number 4, letter A. And that has to do with maintaining City Hall and future city facilities. And I want to highlight the future city facilities. When we started looking at a NICP, a national a command post for CERT, one of the things that we had talked to the previous city manager, Terry Blount, was that we were going to have an NICP at City Hall instead of just having one at the Davis site. Because if something happens to the Davis site, then we have no other alternative. I would like to bring that in here, and I don't know if this is the right place to put it, but I would like to bring it and talk about it tonight. The second thing I wanted to bring up was number B, where we have, where you canceled 2 and 3. Before you do that, I would like to hear Michelle Radcliffe's give us a presentation on what she has done to update city records management program, and also with C-Click-Fix. With C-Click-Fix, the last time we talked to her, she said it was going to take 40 to 45 days to get the QR code, and that was the last we heard. I have not seen any announcements to the citizens on the update to that. It would be good to have announcements to the residents so they can use it and remind them to use it. I think that's it.
Okay, very good. And Councilmember Turner, we'll return to your suggestion for the addition to 1A4. We'll return to that after we get through the review and look ahead to the goals and objectives for the coming year.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments and suggestions on item 1, on strategic goal number 1 and the items underneath? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, with respect to if you could scroll down just a bit, please. C2, the annual city survey and resident service / feedback. It's like anything, I think it would be helpful to have a baseline, and we don't have a baseline, and it's something that I think we should do. So it is a baseline to see if the city operations, the city council, and how we're improving or maintaining or doing whatever. It's just, I think a baseline is important, and the sooner we get that baseline, the better we can see how we're doing against that baseline. So that's one comment. And then in terms of B, I think that, and I think part of what I heard from Councilmember Turner has to do with what I'll call business continuity. And, it fits into information technology and a succession plan, so that from an IT perspective, you always hear about business continuity, because if there's some type of a disaster or a failure, how does the IT continue to operate? And I believe that our IT could be more robust. So I think as an initiative, we should have something on business continuity, and then and the subset of that is on information technology, but also on a succession plan. So for example, and forgive the expression, it's kind of a Toronto expression, what if someone gets hit by a streetcar and they don't show up for work tomorrow? How are we going to continue? So something, I don't know what we've got for succession planning, and or if we know people are retiring, our staff are retiring or whatever, that we can continue to operate. And as an example of that, if you look at the current turnover at the town of Los Gatos, I believe that Matt Morley just resigned, and he's going over to Cupertino. So those are a couple of things, a couple of my comments on these items.
Very good. And similar to a council member Turner, we'll return to that and as a potential addition for the upcoming year for 2022, 2023. And I've made a note of that. Other comments, suggestions on the item under one?
Mr. Spano, I think because two council members commented on item B, number 2 and 3, we can add the words ongoing, remove the crosses through, and add ongoing to those in yellow.
Very good.
And the QR code has been up on SeeClick Fix for quite some time, I believe.
Okay, very good. Okay, let's move on to goal 2, maintain community character.
So goal 2, maintaining community character, update the general plan / housing element / objective standards. As was mentioned earlier this evening, objective standards was one of the things that council was proud of that has happened in the last year. The housing element, we are going through that right now. We have a meeting coming up in April. I believe it's April 23rd, if my memory serves me correct. And updating the general plan, that is going to occur next year, 2023, because we have to finish the housing element first and get our arena numbers in line. Now, with that said, I want to tie what I have in green to the general plan. I have a little key at the bottom of the document, but in this category, you'll see focus on an inclusive community. And there are other items that I think can be addressed by the general plan update that were part of our strategic goals. And those items are in number 5. I don't want to bounce around here, but when it comes to enhancing environmental sustainability, there are 3 other items that I have highlighted in green that I think can be addressed by the updating of the general plan. So we're calling this in process, and that is something that will carry over into 22-23. B, develop a community arts program, birdhouses / libraries around the city. So last year there was an idea presented for birdhouses. I communicated with the individual who brought that item forward. We haven't heard anything further. However, in lieu of, and libraries can be put forth by those we have a lot of those little libraries in people's yards, not necessarily really city driven per se, but one thing I am very proud of is on the Wimberley Walkway, there is a little art campaign going on there. And I kind of look at that as our version of a community arts project that's very unique. So I cross this one off for now. I think in the future, we will have more ideas brought forward, and we will have the Billy Jones wall, which will eventually be redone. That could be an opportunity for, a mural or something like that in the future. But cross this off for now, because I think that the libraries are covered, the birdhouses may have fizzled, and we have the Wimberley Walkway, which is totally unique, and the gallery over there, it keeps getting better and better. So we'll leave that up to the residents. The category, Roman numeral 3, enhancing mobility for residents, improving internet capacity for residents. This is something that I think our cable companies are in charge of. It is one of those things where we don't have a budget for it. We do not get a lot of requests for it. As a matter of fact, we have not received any requests. It's been on here for 2 years. And I think it's something that probably should be dropped off at this point. Completing the Highway 9 Sidewalk Gap project in process. We applied for and received a commitment for funding last year, which did not materialize. However, I have recently submitted a request to Assemblymember Lowe's office for similar funding, and we will see how that comes forward. We also have some funding from our, what we call our, the name escapes me, but we received $819,000 in funds from the federal government last year, pandemic related, which will go to the general fund. We received half of that last July, and we're receiving another $409,000 this year. So that could beef up our general fund reserves, which may make council more comfortable should we get denied the request from Assemblymember Lowe's office to move forward with this project. We are waiting for a permit from Caltrans. And again, this is I think a very crucial element to connect Monte Sereno from Dave's Avenue consistently all the way down Highway 9 to downtown Los Gatos, and making it walkable and safe for residents. Design and complete the Xena Avenue La Recanata pavement project. One of our key accomplishments of last year has been completed. Thank you to Engineer Jessica Kahn for doing that, as well as updating the bicycle and pedestrian plan for the city of Monte Sereno. That is in process, and that continues.
Very good. Let's pause here. Do you have a comment, Mayor Pro Tem? On items 2 or 3 here, goals 2 or 3.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Once we got into mentioning streets and mobility, it reminded me that and fiscal prudence that one of the issues that we're going to be facing, and I've worked with our city attorney on this, has to do with funding of our street maintenance through the 2 users that cause that deterioration in the streets, being essentially garbage trucks and import-export of dirt. And I just wonder if we should put that as a placeholder under fiscal prudence to so that we have an initiative this year to really consider the funding of our streets. Because from the solid waste side, we're going to go into a 10-year contract. So once it's in place, then we'll kind of move forward, but it will require work from the Better Streets Commission and council. That was my comment.
Okay, very good. And so the suggestion is to add an item under goal number 1, 1A, fiscal prudence.
That is correct.
Okay, very good. Make a note of that, and we'll come back to that after we work through the review here. Councilmember Lawler.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, on regarding maintaining community character, I'm going to assume that SB 9 review and revisions will be under A, updating the general plan housing element objective standards. I'm assuming that that will be also part of our objective is keeping an eye on SB 9 revisions. And then the other question I had is can we add establishing historic districts in our city, or at least looking at that? Would that be something we can add to this category, maintain community character, or is this something we should agendize first? I did bring it up before because we do have historically significant or architecturally significant homes in our neighborhood. And I think it would be meaningful for us to designate them as such. I mean, even potentially City Hall for that matter. So I think that would also go towards not only community character, but sense of community and history.
Very good. Excellent.
And
Go ahead,
if
Steve.
I can comment, in attachment 3 in our packet, what Councilmember Lawler just alluded to is sort of the next step in the process where council will be now selecting additional goals moving forward. And we did include those 2 line items in the categories as kind of starting points. However, very good feedback. Thank you.
All right, thanks. I did see that. Thank you.
Very good. And just in terms of a process here, so when we work through the review and then we'll come back and look at the potential additions to the goals and to the objectives, and we'll get a sense about where council is, whether they want to direct staff to go forward to consider that and any research that needs to be done. And then there's no, as your city attorney will say, there's no formal decision making tonight because we're not agendized to that, but it would come back and you would formally approve that at a later council meeting. So I see Councilmember Turner's hand. Yes, you're up.
Yes, if I may go back to number 1, I have a comment, a brief comment about that, where we talked about the survey. Where was
Yes,
that?
so it's a C2, I believe.
Yes, yes. So I think I'd like to comment that I think surveys need to be done professionally. And this is to avoid any bias in the questions and to have answers, available answers, right? When we give them a form that they need to fill out. It's also not about business continuity. This is a different topic. This is about immediate response to a disaster in terms of helping citizens in trouble. So I would like to change that a little bit and take a look at that.
Is this still related to the survey on the
Yes.
disasters? Okay. Oh, very good. Excellent. And I didn't comment, but let me just make a quick comment about the survey. And I believe it was Mayor Pro Tem Mekachuk about needing a baseline. And so your direction here is to consider the content, what you want to survey your residents on. And it's very important that you get that right because you usually use the same survey every year. So you have a baseline and a sense of comparison. So I just
Absolutely.
So I just want to commend council for taking the time to make sure that it's done, the content matches what it is that you want to ask your residents and the information you need from them, because it's obviously very important. Okay, we can move forward on to goal number 4.
Okay, maintaining community safety. We have crossed off both items, evaluate and implement initiatives to maintain community safety, private security patrols, increase Los Gatos Monte Sereno Police Department control flock cameras. So a couple things that were accomplished this year. One is a new neighborhood watch program. This is one of those items that is moving below the waterline. It's ongoing. We have a new neighborhood watch program. We have a flock camera program that is being maintained and implemented by the Los Gatos Monte Sereno Police Department. We have a new police chief, and private security patrols were not part of what they would recommend. but we're just moving this one below the water line. It's not that we are turning our back on this, and it's not that this is not an ongoing element, which will evolve over time, but looking forward as something we would, I would hate to say not prioritize, but we're just removing it from the list as something that it's already being done on an ongoing basis. And our role here is never complete with this item, but it is being managed by the Los Gatos Monte Sereno Police Department in partnership with us. And then review and implement as appropriate fire-wise, conduct biannual review by Santa Clara County Fire Department. And that is something that they do for us on an ongoing basis, as well as all the other fire safety programs we have and the evacuation plans, which are maintained and implemented by Los Gatos Monte Sereno Police Department in conjunction with County Fire. I think we're pretty well covered on those items. Again, we are not turning our back. We are not saying these aren't important. They are ongoing, but they're no longer things that we really have to work to put in place to initiate. So that's why those are crossed off. Moving on to item 5, enhance environmental sustainability. This is something I mentioned earlier. You can see the key green equals implementation via general plan update. We can knock out A, F, and G, I think, with our general plan update in 2023, which comes after those other steps, our objective standards in our housing element, as well as the other previous green item, which was focus on the inclusive community. Let's move on to the reds, the ones that we are recommending for removal. Review and as appropriate update the noise ordinance, move from gas leaf blowers to electric leaf blowers, which was just an example which was given. And California now, I believe, is banning all the last gas leaf blowers by 2024, so it's going to be a state policy. And updating the noise ordinance is something that we could bring forward, although I think it was primarily the concern of things like the gas-operated equipment in the neighborhoods that are what was of concern when we talk about a revision of the noise ordinance. We don't get a lot of calls for parties and things like that, or disturbances, other disturbances in our community from commercial entities or those types of things. It's primarily, construction work, and we have a different ordinance for maintaining those hours. So this one here, I was thinking could be removed. Develop and implement a program to keep our city pretty. I did present this idea to the Youth Commission, and they wanted to, or opted to do something with the West Valley Clean Water Program instead. So I was recommending removal on this, keeping our city pretty. I was thinking of creating a bag and a marketing campaign, but I think we can either revisit this one in the future or see what the Youth Commission wants coming forward as an activity to run a campaign like this. D, review and implement Urban Forestry Alliance. That is in process, ongoing. So we leave that one on. E, review opportunities to improve drainage and enhance flood control. On a case-by-case basis throughout the city, when we received inquiries about flooding and rain and drainage and those types of things, we have been able to address those one at a time, whether it was building berms or replacing storm drains, fixing potholes that were filling up. We have knocked out a lot of those problems in the city in the last couple of years. It was mentioned in a previous goal setting session, flood noodles. We have access to flood noodles. If we need those, we can throw those down. But this is, again, one of those things that literally is moving below the water line. It's flood control. And I'm hoping that in the future, we will get more rain. And that is a whole nother issue. Maybe we should say drought control on this one. But in a sense, I think this one should be eliminated at this point in time because I think we've achieved good steps in this direction. And I'm open for questions on this category or comments.
Council questions, comments on item number 5, or if you could scroll up, that could also include the community safety goal number 4. Any questions or comments?
Yes. Perhaps Mayor Elahi would like to talk about reach codes 2.0 and water reach codes, because maybe those fit under 5.
Yeah, I think that discussion is going to be coming up on a more specific basis, but you've got both the reach codes, which would move the city towards better climate protection goals, and also the water codes will be coming up also. So I think those things are going to be coming up. We've discussed it, and there will be presentations on that, and a lot of them will apply to new construction, but at some point they will also apply to construction of more than 50% of the property, or some other definition of what's considered new construction. So those are going to be coming up, and that will be good. One thing, I don't know if anybody else has any questions. One thing I wanted to do, and Councilmember Turner had invited Clerk Michelle to talk about a couple of those projects. I think this may be a good time to just have all the staff members that are present, including Michelle Estabio and Jessica Khan and Renal Samaranos, to give us about a minute to 2 minutes of what they think Monte Sereno needs to do as far as our goals are concerned, or shed any light on any of the items we've discussed. How do you feel about that, Mr. Spano?
If staff is up for it, let's see if they would like to participate.
So we'll put Michelle Estabio on the spot to start.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, you wanted to ask, you wanted an update on the projects, or you wanted?
Well, Councilmember Turner had some specific questions she wanted you to address, so those may be helpful. Plus, if you have anything else you want to add.
Okay, well, I could start with the records management program. The council adopted the updated retention schedule, I believe it was late last year. And in the meantime, what I've done is we've located an offsite storage to store some of the documentation, some of the plans that are permanent offsite. The deputy city clerk and I have gone through our files and have shredded duplicates of just miscellaneous records that we had duplicates of. So we're getting really into the shredding part, the destruction part of it. And then I personally have been identifying records that are subject to destruction, but will still need the city attorney's approval for destruction. And I hope to have a list to the city attorney in the next month or so with those records that are ready for destruction. As for C-Click Fix, I have been working closely with Civic Plus and C-Click Fix. There was some lag in the time frame because in order for the application to be on Google and on Apple, we had to go through a process of being an Apple developer. And that entailed registering the city as an actual, I guess, company is what they needed. They needed some documentation to show that we were actually a legit company and that I had the authorization to create this app for the city. And once that took about 2 to 3 weeks to actually go through the approval process to have an app on the Apple Store. Once we got the approval, I worked with C-Click Fix to get them, on how the application would look, the colors, the pictures that we're going to use in the background, the title, the description of the application. I actually received the proof of that last week. And in conversations with the representative at C-Click Fix, she says that the actual getting the application out and live to the public will probably take another 3 to 4 weeks, just for timing with the engineers or whatnot. And her and I do have a meeting next week in terms of marketing. It's really how we want, I guess she said we could market in 2 ways. We can market like right before the actual launch to just let the public know that we're having this new application, or we can mark it after it's live. So that's a decision or conversation the city manager and I will need to have after my meeting with C-Clips on what direction we want to go to. They're also creating marketing materials for us, along with a QR code, graphics, postcards. But again, that will, I'll have more information on that after our meeting next week. That's the updates I have.
Great, thank you so much. It looks like you've been working pretty hard over there.
Thanks.
Councilmember Turner, does that answer your questions?
Yes, and perhaps we could do another launch at our next picnic for the residents.
Yes, we could definitely do that. And at the next council meeting, I can provide, a graphic of what it's the proof. Or maybe I could just email the proof to the council, so you can see what we've got so far.
Okay,
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm wondering if our city clerk wants to keep item B3 on our plan, or if it can be struck. That's the question that I've got for our city clerk.
Feel that it can be struck. It'll be complete within by the end of this fiscal year. So I don't necessarily feel that it needs to be brought over for the next year, but I will defer to the council's decision on that.
Good. So I think the suggestion was to put that down as ongoing until it does get completed at the end of the fiscal year. And when we meet again next year, it'll be a strike through and it'll be down underneath the water line and part of the routine work of the city.
Sounds fair. Let's see, does Engineer Jessica Khan have any comments or any suggestions for our strategic goals that we're doing here today?
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council members. I've noticed this evening my internet connection is kind of fuzzy, so forgive me if I come in and out. But just reviewing these items that we have here under enhancing mobility for residents, I think Steve covered it pretty well. We're in the process of completing the Highway 9 Sidewalk app project and the bicycle and pedestrian master plan. In general, the pavement maintenance and our PCI is going up. I should have a report for you, if not next meeting, the meeting after, of our biannual update. And we are definitely above 70 and well on our way to our goal of 75. One item that might be new to the council is that our city's regional municipal permit for stormwater is renewing this year, and there's going to be more requirements of the city, in particular a green infrastructure project. And considering we only have one public property being City Hall, it will in the next 5 years need to be on that property. So I think that under enhancing environmental sustainability, it can definitely besides.
And we are
alternatives, those kind of items.
So that's a good suggestion. So we could add that on to our environmental sustainability, meeting the green requirements. That'd be a good one. Did you have anything else, Engineer Khan?
That is all,
Great,
all I had for this evening.
All right, Ms. Perkins, if you don't mind, if you can share some of your thoughts with us.
Hello, good evening. I am Diana Perkins, the city planner, and this is my first time listening to and participating in this type of workshop. There has been quite a bit of discussion on the SB 9 requirements, and I know there was quite a push to get an ordinance approved before the first of the year when the state legislation was effective. I do think there's probably some opportunity to modify the SB 9 ordinance now that we're a little more familiar with what other cities are doing, what property owners are asking for, as well as our requirements to plan for additional units under the housing element. So I think that's probably something that could be looked at if council desires.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Samaranas, our budget guy, please let us share anything you think may be
Oh,
helpful
sure.
for our strategic goals.
Yes, I'll be pleased to have some comments. I was pleased to see the Fix-It Monte Sereno project. I think that's a great project that we implemented, since it's a vehicle or it's a tool for residents to voice their issues that they might have in their neighborhoods regarding street lights and so forth. So I think that's a great project that we implemented. I think in looking at complete Highway 9 sidewalk gap project, well, I come from a city called the city of Orinda, which is very similar to the city of Monte Sereno. And in our community in Orinda, we don't have sidewalks. And having a way for people to walk safely through Monte Sereno through that project, I think that's a great project to implement. The other item is the continued maintenance of streets. In the city of Orinda, for example, they neglected that, and voters or the residents continued to vote against any initiatives to, add tax to make that maintenance. And as a result, 20 years later, you have a disarray of streets. And so I'm pleased to hear that, there are initiatives, continued initiatives in the budget or in the plan to maintain those streets here in the city of Monte Sereno, and to basically maintain those streets on an ongoing basis, basically paying for that maintenance now, then paying someone later that, to maintain those at a higher cost. So those were the two main items that I saw on there. And then, of course, the use of the asset, the annex building, I think I'd like to see some greater use for that that benefits the residents. So I think that's all my comments.
Thank you so much. I think it's very valuable to hear from you. And Mr. Leonardis, you need to be congratulated that your staff is on top of a lot of things and has some great suggestions. So thank you for that. And as you were giving suggestions, I had thought we can add one more thing on item 1A, maintain fiscal prudence. Monte Sereno receives only about 6% of the property taxes that we pay to the state or to the county. Whereas other cities, I think Saratoga or Los Gatos, they receive closer to 14%. So we may want to, and I've talked to the assessor's office, and I need to talk to the auditors to see if we can increase that revenue that we get for our property taxes. And I think it's probably been approached before, but that's something that we could look at. So I would like to see if we can add that under maintain fiscal prudence, is to examine possibility of generating additional property tax revenue from Santa Clara County. If we can add.
And Mayor, I would suggest we move on to attachment number 3, which gives the council the opportunity to start adding new goals for the year, where the list, you'll see a similar list to this, except largely empty with a few new ideas. And some were mentioned by Councilmember Lawler earlier. And I think reach codes was mentioned. We have that on there as well. So beginning with quality public service, fiscal prudence, that could be the #1 new add, the item you just mentioned. If Ms. Estebillo, you could bring up that page, the one with the yellow highlights, there it is.
There we go.
So, and the objective now is to add the new goals as were mentioned or will be mentioned going forward. And then we're going to merge this list with the other list in real time and eliminate the things that might have been strike-throughs and or the red items. And then we'll have one complete master list once we're finished with this. And that's the idea. Do it all in real time. So
Excellent
I would say,
suggestion. Yeah, let's move on.
based on what the mayor just mentioned, we could fill out item #1. And Mr. Mayor, if you want to put it in your words, it would be increase property tax.
Increase the property tax allocation for Monte Sereno from the current 6% to a higher number that would be appropriate.
Higher percentage.
Right.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And just for reference, that may be difficult to do for various reasons, including the fact that the allocation of tax revenue is prescribed by a formula set, by the state as a result of Prop 13.
Yeah, I understand that. Maybe you can guide us as to see what we need to do to get the state to move on it. Maybe we need to get our state people involved. But we should take a look at it because this is a huge gap.
Okay. And so let me just jump in with again with a process comment here. So we're putting the items on here, and then this gives staff an opportunity to do some research, as your attorney just mentioned. Is that even feasible? Is that even possible given the structure of the property tax?
Right.
So we did have that item under fiscal prudence, and I believe Mayor Pro Tem, you had made a suggestion about funding streets, transportation infrastructure that might fit underneath this item.
Yeah, I would put words to the effect of investigate additional funding for street specific maintenance. And I know that City Attorney Rudin is spending some time on that now, and it's going to be underway. So yeah, that looks good.
Very good. Under government, unless there's anything else under fiscal prudence. Councilmember Turner.
Yes, I wanted to put in the NICP for Monte Sereno, so we have an additional command post, and I think that would only cost $12,000.
Now, would you like to put that under fiscal, Councilmember Turner, or would you like to put that under community safety?
It doesn't matter.
Maybe let's put that under community safety.
It does seem to fit under there. Excellent. Okay, as Michelle is working on that, we can go on to governance operations. And Steve, if you just want to say a couple words about the item that's there on the code enforcement officer, building inspector.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Spano. So this idea is something that I've had for a long time. And when we were talking about having the annual city survey and the resident feedback, one of the things that we do have issues with, especially during the pandemic, there's been a lot of construction activity. And sometimes people will show up early in the morning, whether they're, cleaning out the porta potties, or they decide it's okay to deliver insulation at 7 in the morning and they're not supposed to be there until 8 a.m. Or maybe the guys get there at 7:30 and they start playing music or throwing chains in the back of their trucks or whatever they're doing. So it's been suggested, why don't we have somebody come early in the morning and kind of stand out there and try to, help with these types of problems, and or, other neighborhood disputes, code enforcement disputes, between a neighbor who builds a structure illegally or cuts down a tree illegally or whatnot, all tied in with permitting and building. So right now, Monte Sereno contracts both of these services, and we have two different individuals, and they come sort of as needed. And it's been thought of for a long time here to improve our service before we do our survey. I see this as a need that the city has to really make the quality of life improved in this category. We used to have a building official named Howard Bell, and he was very good at going out there and being very strict. And that may not be the entirety of the approach we're looking for, but more of a presence and more of somebody who is familiar with building codes as well as code enforcement rolled into one position. And maybe that position will be a 3/4 time or a full-time position. We've created a job description that we're working on. I was going to present this to council at budget time, but I think this would greatly enhance the quality of life for the city and improve a service element that we've been missing in the city for a long time, perhaps when we went to the contract building official and the contract code enforcement services. I think if we could roll both of these into one unique position and get somebody out there that has a presence all the time, we can probably eliminate a lot of these service issues for residents. So that was something that staff put on there, and if council sees merit in that idea, we will put together a cost analysis for budget time and the job description, and you will be able to vote on it at budget time. And then we can go and hire somebody in the future and then we can do the surveys.
Okay, reactions to that, council is providing direction for your city manager to do a cost analysis and come back with an update and asking for formal approval. I'm seeing nods around the table.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Excellent, very good. We can move on. Mayor Pro Tem suggested IT under governance and operations as well as succession planning.
Yeah, what?
Business continuity.
Yeah, develop a business continuity plan, comma, which may include information technology and succession planning. I don't want it to be limited, and I don't want it to be stated that it must have that. It's just, I think we need to develop a business continuity plan.
Okay, and to help provide some direction for staff, what would that look like if that was to come back? Let's say that was approved and come back. What would that look like? What would that consist of?
So there's two aspects to it. The information technology side would be, that we're using more applications that are not sitting on hardware that are on our facilities, on our premises. And there's username, passwords, all of that information is included so that there's no single point of failure. Those are kind of principles to it. And on succession planning, it's that if someone was to resign and say, I'm gone in 2 weeks, and or they had some sort of an illness where they had to go on long-term disability immediately, that the city could keep on operating without going into a spin cycle. I mean, we really are dependent on our employees and our contractors, and we really only have 5 or 6, I think it is, Steve. Is that correct?
I missed a part of your question there. You said we only have 5 or 6 employees total?
Employees / contractors, yes.
Oh, yes. So we have 7 total employees and 3 contractors currently.
So let me give you an example of this. We went from a small sole practitioner city attorney to a larger firm, and in that larger firm, we've got Sergio, and if something were to happen to Sergio, at least there's the continuity inside of his firm. That's just an example, whereas we didn't have that before. And in other areas, maybe we have that, maybe we don't. I don't know. But I just think that we have to be prepared for, we should have a business continuity plan.
Very good. Excellent. Other council members, comments, reactions to the business continuity plan? Yes, Councilmember Lawler.
Thank you. I agree with Mayor Pro Tem that we definitely need that. And since we do have a small staff, that perhaps that would include cross-training, which I think we're already doing to some degree, but making that more robust.
Good. Excellent. Okay, any other comments, reactions? Any other items for B, for governance operations? Okay, let's move on. Community engagement. One of the suggested items from staff, update boards and commission attendance rules.
And I wanted to mention, Mr. Spano, this item was brought forward by Councilmember Lawler. And we thought there might be some opportunity for our boards and commissioners to just have a clear attendance policy that would include, I would say, the Youth Commission, the Better Streets Commission, and the Site and Architecture Commission.
Very good. And I do know that's fairly common in other cities, having attendance requirements for their commissions and boards. Okay, any reactions to that or any other items, new items under community engagement?
And while we're on this subject, if I could just, I'm hoping that council saw the information about the Citizen of the Year program. Pretty straightforward. Most of these are handled by chambers of commerce or, private entities outside of the city government. But in Monte Sereno, there's no reason why we can't have it at the city level. There will be no compensation. It'll just be recognition. It'll be a citizen nominated by the peers in their community. We have a nomination form, which I created. We could post the announcement. And in consultation with Mayor Elahi, we thought that we would announce in June and have it, the individual be chosen by early August, and that individual would be recognized at our annual picnic. That would be kind of the annual timeframe for the program. Just again, to enhance community engagement. We have a lot of outstanding people that live in Monte Sereno, so we look forward to this program. I'm assuming what you saw in the staff report would be a satisfactory program for that item.
I'm not hearing any objections.
I wanted to maybe go a little further on that, and we're talking about update boards and commissions attendance rules, but what about recognition for our volunteers that are on, for example, Site and Architectural Commission? I know that Steve Wade spent years working on that, and he was the chair a number of years, and he put a lot of time and effort into it, and now you see that in our built environment here in the city of Monte Sereno, and I'm just picking him as an example, but there's others that if we were to, not call them the Citizen of the Year, but at least recognize our commissioners, I think that would be really helpful, make it easier to recruit more. So just food for thought. I'm not sure if the other council members have observations on that.
Yeah, no, Councilor Luthor, please go ahead.
Yeah, I completely second what Mayor Pro Tem Mekachuk said on that. And I wanted to add kind of the Citizen of the Year idea. I think recognizing one person is one person in the right direction. But what I've been interested in is what started with the KCAT and what was going on to recognize really the living history project type of thing, and to gather information about who our outstanding citizens are and document their stories and really put that out there. So I actually think recognizing one is really the wrong thing to do. I think we need to recognize 5 or 10 or 15 and really document who these incredible people in Monte Sereno are, the companies they've built or the nonprofits they've participated in. We just have some amazing people here, and of course, an older population. Anytime we lose someone, we lose that collective memory if we haven't documented it. So I'd actually suggest that we not focus on a Citizen of the Year, but really revitalizing this and maybe increase the contribution to KCAT and get them doing it, get the Youth Commission involved. But I think it's something that we need to expand.
Okay, so two items to respond to. What Councilmember Luthold just mentioned on recognizing more than one citizen, and then the suggestion from the Mayor Pro Tem that was just mentioned prior to that. So any reactions, responses?
Yeah, I think we should probably put it on an agenda and see how broad and how deep we want to have the recognition process go. The important thing is to recognize people who have contributed, and whether it's one citizen or one organization or more, it's a step in the right direction. And also, I think I do like the idea of recognizing people who have been serving on the Better Streets Commission or on the SNA Commission. And if nothing else, on the annual picnic, we can acknowledge their presence, and hopefully they'll attend the picnic, and at that time, point out all the good work they have been doing. We can agendize the full item later on. Yeah.
Good. And so let's go to Councilmember Lawler and then Councilmember Turner.
Thank you, Sean. Yeah, so what I would recommend then is that for number 2, that we just put recognition program so that we can later discuss what that's going to look like.
Very good. Excellent. And recognition of your commissioners, as well as potentially more than one citizen annually. Okay, very good. Councilmember Turner.
Yes, I would also like to expand the recognition for residents to include not just older citizens, but also the millennial generation that we have in Monte Sereno, as well as the Generation Z, right? That are doing really well in our city.
Very good. Nice. And so that falls under the recognition program. So you have commissioners and residents and
of all ages.
Yes, broad generational on the residents. Excellent. Very good. Okay, on to community character, and it was suggested by Councilmember Lawler on historic districts. And so the suggestion there on historical preservation guidelines. City Manager Leonardis, do you speak to that briefly, and then we'll ask Councilmember Lawler if that speaks to her item.
Certainly, and thank you, Mr. Spano. So when this idea was brought forward, the idea was we have a cluster of Eichler homes that are in very excellent condition over in one area of Monte Sereno, and other cities, Mountain View, Palo Alto, Sunnyvale, I believe, have included Eichlers on their historic preservation list, specifically Eichler homes. And I think Monte Sereno, we don't really have any historic preservation policies. Every once in a while we deal with a historic home and it's kind of up to site and architecture. We used to have something called a historic preservation committee, as well as an arts and cultural committee. And both of those committees, I think we have ordinances backing those, but we don't have those committees in place. So I think what this goal should be twofold. One should be to perhaps terminate those 2 previous committees and assign the historical duties to the Site and Architecture Committee going forward. And then if Monte Sereno wanted to designate specifically, was it the street called Via Sereno off of Winchester, where the Eichler homes are located as a historic district specifically and or draft more specific historical preservation rules, such as any home built prior to 1970 or something to the effect, or before 1975 and below would be considered, potentially historic. That would be something that we could bring back to council and have it be in a future agenda item.
Very good. So reactions to that and responses to that, and then we'll turn to Councilmember Lawler to ask about if that speaks to her issue about the historic districts. Okay, hearing nothing on the guidelines, Councilmember Lawler.
Thank you. Yes, it does, because that was specifically what I had asked for, because we do have these significant, architecturally significant homes, the Eichler, that cul-de-sac, but I'd also like to extend it beyond to see if there's anything else that we have that may be considered. I think, again, this goes towards preserving community character, the look and feel of our community, as well as recognizing real value and building a sense of overall community. So yes, that does speak to it. I think that is something that we can continue to discuss.
Excellent. Very good. Anything else for community character?
I would like to add about the historical preservation, please.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I wanted to see what input we can get from the Historical Society, if at all possible, so we can get all their best practices and best known methods that they've used over the years.
Very good. Excellent. And so that becomes a part of the research that staff will do and come back to you with the guidelines, a plan for the guidelines. Nothing, I have not heard anything under enhanced mobility, anything new under enhanced mobility. Lots of compliments around your street infrastructure, transportation infrastructure around streets, but I did not hear anything new around enhanced mobility or, I'm sorry, I was going to say community safety outside of the NICP that Councilmember Turner mentioned. Anything for enhanced mobility or community safety in addition to the NICP, additional NICP? Councilmember Lawler.
Thank you. For enhanced mobility, I think, we're already improving mobility through our streets project and improving our infrastructure. So that's making our streets safer for pedestrians as well as those who are wheelchair bound with sidewalks and swales for sidewalks. My question would be, I know internet is we don't really have a lot of control over that. Is this something where cell phone service might pop up its head, where 5G, everything's kind of going 5G? Is that a conversation that we should be having? Would that be considered enhanced mobility?
We did note that improve internet capacity for residents was under this goal and was suggested by your city manager to eliminate that. It's been a objective for now several years, and there's, as I'm understanding it, there's little authority that the city has for that, given the private companies that manage that.
Right. So then my question is, does that also apply to cell phone service?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe it would, but I'll ask somebody who has more expertise in this area.
Okay. All right.
So I will say the city does have an ordinance in place to regulate the permitting of wireless facilities in the city. This ordinance has not been touched in a very, very long time. And, in the event that you are anticipating a spur of wireless applications, it might be wise to update this ordinance to meet current federal law requirements. But otherwise, typically, with respect to deployment of fiber and, those kinds of projects, for internet, telecommunications franchises or telecommunications companies have a franchise that is granted pursuant to state law to allow deployment of fiber and telecoms within the city right of way. And the city can't generally deny that. So really, unless the city wants to, create its own, internet utility, which obviously is a very expensive proposition, but there are cities that have done it. I don't know that there's much for the city to do other than perhaps consider revisiting its wireless regulations to the extent you want to facilitate additional high-speed wireless deployment.
Very good. So does that make it onto the screen as an objective to update the wireless regulation ordinance?
Yeah, I would think so, simply because we haven't done it in a while, and 5G is here and it's coming to a city near you, so we might as well be prepared.
Very good. Thoughts from other council members on that item? Very good. Then let's move on to jump in, Mayor Pro Tem.
Roman numeral 3D says update the bicycle and pedestrian plan for the city of Monte Sereno in process. I'm wondering if we need to move from beyond the update the plan to implementing items in that plan. And it's kind of a rhetorical question, I guess.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what's in the plan, but I think that having a sidewalk or a safer sidewalk through the S-turn on Dave's Avenue between Via Caballero and then where the sidewalk ends on the south side of Dave's Ave would be super helpful for starting to join our cul-de-sacs, so that, in a cul-de-sac, you don't need a sidewalk, but you need something safer through that S-turn. And I have been wondering when that's going to make it into the bicycle and pedestrian plan, but it's something that we should think about implementing. So I'd like to see that, but maybe it's in the plan, but then it's the implementation of that.
Yeah, very good. City Manager Leonardis, offhand, do you know if that S-turn is in the plan, and would it be possible to change the wording going back to the original document from update the bicycle and pedestrian plan to implement the bicycle and pedestrian plan?
So we are, I guess we can put the word implement the bicycle and pedestrian, or update and implement. It is an ongoing process. It's an evolutionary process. Engineer Khan may have more to say about the particulars of the request of Mayor Pro Tem Mekachek, but I'm sure that issue can be raised with the Better Streets Committee and see how that goes forward from there. There was an opportunity recently when that home was redone, for one reason or another, it didn't come to fruition. That was before my tenure here, and I don't know how to further comment on that, but perhaps there's an opportunity going forward from this point to improve that area for pedestrian safety. So I don't know if Engineer Khan is still on the line, but she may have some more to add to that.
And maybe that's an item for the Better Streets Commission for their 2022/23 agenda. And I could work with them on that as part of the liaison.
Excellent. Okay. Okay, so that item will go to the Better Streets Commission, and we can, if Engineer Khan is on, you might, if you have anything to add to that. Hearing none.
Hi.
Oh, yes, please.
Oh.
Jump in, Jessica.
Yeah, no problem. So that S curve is definitely in the bicycle and pedestrian master plan. Like Steve said, it is a work in progress. We expect that to be completed by the end of the calendar year. So I do think putting in the word implement the bicycle and pedestrian master plan would be appropriate and the council goals. And then as far as the piece of sidewalk not being implemented when the property was redeveloped, there is no policy right now in the city for the replacement of a sidewalk on a on any property, or the construction of a sidewalk on any property. So to just do it on that one project without some kind of policy would have been difficult to implement.
Very good. Excellent. Okay, thank you for that. We are ready to move on to goal number 5, and there were 2 items suggested, and one is on there, the reach codes that Mayor Elahi mentioned. And Steve, just a quick update on that.
Certainly. Well, as Mayor Elahi mentioned, we met with Silicon Valley Clean Energy, Mayor Elahi, myself, Mayor Pro Tem Mekachek, and they will be coming in, I believe, at our April 19th meeting for a presentation and a path forward on the reach codes that will be updated later this year. California is in the process of adopting some new rules as well. Reach codes go beyond the standard building codes and enhance further environmental sustainability to those building codes. Hence, that's why they're called reach, because they reach further. And that is the terminology I believe everyone is familiar with. And we do have a presentation coming on that as far as a plan for it to come to council for decisions by, so we have a time frame no later than November. The process will be complete. The public hearings and the potential adoption at that time no later than November.
Excellent.
So could we use words like evaluate and consider updating reach codes in 2022? I mean, maybe we evaluate and we see if we don't want to do it, but at least put it on the initiatives list. Does that make sense?
City manager?
That seems perfectly well worded.
Okay, excellent.
Well,
Very good.
I will say, as a matter of state law, that the building code is on a triennial cycle, and every 3 years, every city in California is required to adopt the most recent version of the California building code. And typically, cities adopt their reach codes as local amendments to the building code. So your local amendments, your current reach codes, go away the next time the California Building Standards Commission adopts its new building codes, and you would likely have to affirmatively readopt them. So this is something that the city is going to have to reconsider.
Excellent. Okay, so it's important to be on the list. Councilmember Lawler?
I just had a question about water and conservation. And Sergio, do you know if there's any movement in Sacramento about reach codes regarding water usage in homes?
Not that I'm aware of. Typically, reach codes, the way that we think of them, are specific to energy efficiency. They're enacted pursuant to provisions of the Public Resources Code relating to the California Energy Commission and their ability to set energy efficiency standards. So I am sure that there will likely be some actions at the state level in the future in response to, climate change and the lower availability of water general, and, just the general inadequacy of the state's water infrastructure, since it was designed for water conditions that may not exist in 20 or 30 years, or maybe not even now. But I'm not aware of anything specific that is planned for this year's legislative cycle.
Okay, I was just wondering if there was any consideration towards, tracking conservation efforts and education, but I think we've already included that in we're gonna be putting that into our general plan anyway. Is that right, Steve?
Yeah.
Promoting low water and low fire landscaping alternatives and things like that.
That is correct. That would be the goal in 2023, incorporate language for water conservation, perhaps gray water, those type of things,
Right.
systems. And I did hear, rumblings about water reach codes from Santa Clara Valley Water District in the past. I guess we can take a cue from them going forward. But, here we have a statement that is kind of all encompassing, evaluate and consider updating reach codes in 2022. I guess if there is something called water reach codes, we could evaluate and update those as well. So.
All right, obviously something to keep an eye on. Thanks.
Okay, and the other item that I have under here from the mayor was meeting green requirements. So is this an item that would go under environmental sustainability? And it would be helpful a little bit more specific on the green requirements.
Yeah, I think we were talking about, and that has to do with the water conservation also.
Okay.
To provide better landscaping, less water dependent landscaping.
Okay, very good. Which I believe would be covered in the update to the general plan.
Yeah.
Under promote low water and low fire landscaping alternatives for residents. Very good. Okay, so I think we have that covered. And so Steve, are we looking for the city clerk to do a little bit of cutting and pasting?
Well, we can either do it that way, or we can just merge these two lists, and then we will have it available at, budget time. If council is comfortable with the discussion on the prior document, the existing strike-throughs, the ones that we've agreed to list as in process, the ones that we've agreed to eliminate, and then the new adds, we will work on merging these two documents, and we will just have the new strategic goals document that we will be working off of. Essentially, it's as we mentioned earlier, an evolutionary document. We're still working on 21-22, but we are now taking over 22-23, adding it to 21-22, and it's just continuing. It's fluid, and it will be going right through budget time and right into fiscal year 2022-23 into next year.
Very good.
So we can merge them all. I don't think if Ms. Estabile wants to do it now in real time, she's probably capable of doing it, but I don't think it's necessary to do it.
No, I don't either. If that works for council, does that work for council?
Yeah, I think that'll be fine.
Excellent, very good. That being the case, we have now accomplished all of our objectives for this priority session, and we are ready now to wrap up. And so we've actually started doing that. Staff will merge the new items here with the items from the strike-through document and provide the updated list of goals, objectives to you at the coming up at budget time, and then look for additional research to be done, particularly on some of these new items, and then you can formally adopt them as part of the 2022-23 strategic plan. So any questions, comments, any other follow-up items here before we close out this session? We could go to the next slide and slide after that, and one more, and there we go. Okay, so is council comfortable with the decisions that have been made? And I don't want to make that formal decisions, but the suggestions that have been made. Is council comfortable with what was developed here this evening and what the next steps are?
I think we've had an excellent discussion, and it's been good to see participation by the city manager and his staff and by all the city council members. So and a lot of items are discussion items. We haven't decided on them. So we just have to make sure that they show up on the agenda in due course.
Very good. Mr. Mayor, let me turn it to you then to close out our meeting here this evening.
Okay. You know what, this may be inappropriate to ask anybody else who has any comments. I don't see anybody on the attendee list. So we'll go back to city council. Yeah, Councilmember Lawler, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank council, thank Mr. Spano, thank our staff, our city attorney and our city manager for all their hard work. And I really appreciate their input.
Appropriate, and thank you, Mr. Spano. I forgot to thank you, but you're leading us on it. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure working with you all.
Any other comments or discussion items? If not, we will close out the session. Last chance.
Mr. Mayor, I thought of one more thing
Please.
on our way out the door here.
Please.
On the goals, the upcoming goals on the yellow highlighted page, I don't know if council wanted to address SB 9 ordinance moving forward or improvements on that. That was discussed earlier in the evening. There was a speaker, and it might be prudent to add it to the new goals in attachment 3. If council decides that.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate to. I thought we had already added that in, but if not, it should be on there.
Well, I do know Councilmember Lawler asked if under the current maintain community character, one of the items is update general plan, housing element, objective standards. And Councilmember Lawler asked, does that involve SB 9? Does that include SB 9? And it sounds like perhaps that needs a separate line item. As I'm hearing it here, that should be a separate item in addition to updating the general plan, your housing element, and your objective standards.
I think that's a good idea. I think it should be broken out because it's a specific item that we will be dealing with for
Very
the
good.
foreseeable future.
Excellent. So we'll add that in as a new item under maintain community character.
Thank you.
And I would say SB 9 ordinance revisions or something to that effect.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to use the word revisions yet, but we do want to consider it. Consideration of SB 9.
Consideration of, or the continued evolvement of SB 9 or something to that effect. Yeah.
Very good.
Okay.
And I just wanted to thank Mr. Spano for his assistance and the council this evening. I know it's been a long meeting, but we have a very neat process to putting out this work plan. So your participation tonight was fantastic, and staff has clear direction going forward. And we have, as usual, an ambitious list of goals and work to complete in the coming year. But because we have clear direction and we have competent staff, I think we'll get a lot of this stuff done. So we appreciate your input this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. With that, I wish you all a good night and take care. We'll close the meeting.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
You.
Thank you.